everybody, Jennifer Schaus here, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and thanks for joining us in our webinar today. Happy New Year to everybody. This is the beginning of the federal government fiscal new year. It's obviously October 1st, and we've got a great lineup today. It's a mix of both government and industry, and we're going to hear about best practices, and we've got it segmented by topic. So we're going to dig into some of our slides here. We don't take questions throughout the webinar, but it is being recorded. We'll send out the recording as well as the link to the slides later this afternoon once we're able to convert the recording into a MP4 file. So before we get started, just want to tell you a little bit about us. We're based in downtown Washington, D.C., and provide a variety of services for companies that are selling to the federal government. We don't deal with state and local or education, just the federal market. And so our clients typically come to us for anything from market analysis reports, business development. If it makes sense for them, we'll help them get onto the GSA schedule and manage that contract. And then also that post-award kind of back office compliance is another piece of our service. We do have a newsletter that goes out every Monday, which is perhaps how you found out about the event today. And that reaches over 23,000 subscribers, most of which I'd say 90% are probably government contractors or are government contractors. We've got some service providers and then some government personnel as well who are subscribers. We've been putting webinars on for several years, and so we now have a library of over 450 complimentary government contracting webinars, and they cover topics on anything from GSA schedules to business development, and then a lot of the legal pieces such as bid protest, FOIA requests, a little bit of everything. So you can check out all of our recordings there on the YouTube channel. What we did in, just to rewind for a moment, in 2020, we covered every part of the FAR, which is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and those were run through sequentially. So we started with FAR Part 1 in the first part of January and then ended with FAR Part 52 in December. This year, 2021, which has flown by, we're kind of mirroring that process, and we're covering the DFARS. Those are Wednesdays at 12 o'clock, complimentary, so we're more than halfway through that series. If you want to listen to any of the recordings, you can find them on our website as well as our YouTube channel. We've also got the second Friday of every month, a new, well, it was new for this year, which is the GovCon Live QA Cafe. It's the second Friday of every month. There is a small fee to attend, which is $35. If you use the discount code DFARS, you'll get a $15 discount. Next Wednesday, we wanted to mention we do have a special, it's complimentary webinar in our COVID contracting series, and it's the vaccination guidelines for contractors and subcontractors, which recently just came out. So you can find that link to register on our website under the event section. Next year, we're covering, in the same spirit as the FAR and the DFARS, the FAR supplements. It's a webinar series. We're going to have primarily government contracts attorneys who will go through basically the agency and the department nuances that they have within their own department or agency regarding contracting and procurement. And then on that corresponding Friday, we'll have the department and agency playbook series. We're doing that in conjunction with FedMine, Archies and Meehan, and their group. So they're going to cover some of the opportunities. We're also doing this in conjunction with the McLean Group, which is a merger and acquisition outfit, and we will have government representation on most of those webinars as well. Sponsorships are available. One more thing I wanted to note is a new series we're going to launch is called the GIP. It's the Government Industry Partners. And so basically it allows you to conduct a webinar with us. We will help promote it, help you curate it. We're going to host it, we'll record it, and then we'll post your webinar on our website, YouTube channel So you can do this as a 1, 2, or 3-part series, and so this will be all about your business. So it's like today you'll present in front of a live audience, and as I mentioned, you get the recording, the registration list. So if you're targeting government contractors, this is probably a good service for you. And I want to make sure that hopefully everybody can see my screen. And so again, that service, this Government Industry Partners webinar series, is allowing you to conduct a webinar with us. Okay, just to let you know, next Friday is this GovCon Live QA Cafe series that I mentioned. So every month is a different topic. Next Friday is covering set-asides. With the folks here you see on your screen, most people that are in the government contracting sector are probably familiar with these names. And then in November, the second Friday is November 12th, and we will cover pricing. And Marcia, I believe, is joining us later today as we talk about best practices for pricing. And then we'll round out December with mergers and acquisitions with these 4 panelists. You can sign up on our website for all of these. So just go to our website, go to the GovCon Live Q&A tab, and you'll find the links there to register. I want to thank all of our sponsors who have made the webinar today possible. And now we're going to move on to proposal writing. I realize we're a little behind schedule and time, but we've got a great group here for proposal writing. Dear friend and longtime colleague Jim Bender is here with us from ZK Development. Jim, I'm going to move over to your slide here, and the floor is all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Jennifer, for including me today. Happy New Year to everyone. I trust you had a good FY21, and you're really going to get ready to jump on it in 22. I'm going to talk about some things I've learned over my 25 years in federal contracting about best practices in proposal writing. And the first thing I'm going to say is the best way to up your win rate on proposals is to make sure you're only bidding on the best opportunities. Well, there are dozens of RFPs that are going to cross your inbox over the course of this fiscal year that you're capable of bidding on. Every firm has limited resources to mount capture and proposal efforts. Your company has to figure out how to gather intel on upcoming ops. So when the RFP drops, you're making decisions based on data and not hunches. Where are you going to get this data? Of course, there's FBDS, GovWin, USA Spending, and the other packages on buying patterns. There's agency public domain information shared in congressional authorization documents, public meetings with feds, and information gathered by your employees and team members who have client contact. Have a process in place for making these decisions quickly with all relevant stakeholders when the proposal period starts, so you don't waste precious time dithering over the go, no-go decision. Next, it's tempting to rush from RFP to writing to allow more time for writing. Best practices based on years of experience writing proposals says you should spend 15 to 20% of the proposal opening time on the front end planning your response. So if it's a 28-day window, that's 4 or 5 calendar days, which seems like a lot, but it's going to pay off. This is when your prop manager and your leadership team should be setting your win themes based on the data you have from the client and on the competition. Don't leave it to the writers to figure this stuff out, but the people who have the knowledge in their hand and are best positioned to make these decisions, so spend time organizing this information and thinking about the best way to win this thing and how to communicate your superiority to the evaluation team reading your response. Then this information has to be communicated to the writing team in a way that makes sure they really understand the win strategy. This kickoff meeting that you're going to have, they should be encouraged to ask questions so they understand how their piece of the proposal fits in with all of the others and the win strategy. This may take 2 hours, it may take 4, but everyone should be present at the meeting because a decision made on how to write task 1 may not only impact how to write the management plan, but also the budget and how we describe bid staff. Everybody needs to be there, everybody needs to be talking. A good proposal manager should have a sense about whether the writing team really gets the strategy in their assignment. If they are silent during the kickoff, this may be a sign that they need some one-on-one follow-up to make sure they're clear on what's what. Number 4, you want to make sure your proposal manager is helpful and available. In order to get to the holy grail of the proposal manager's life, that is a first draft that works, you have to make sure that everybody is open to asking questions. The most troubling sign from a team member on a proposal team is silence and missed deadlines. This means that the writer is either not started working or they're maybe over their head and afraid that someone will figure that out and punish them for it. A good proposal manager needs to be available at all hours because people generally have day jobs and they're going to work late into the night, and they need to be open to dumb questions and helpful, and to be able to provide the resources to get people who are wandering in the wilderness back on track. Don't just call up a writer and ask them how's it going, but get really detailed into asking them specifics about the challenges of their section. Does the quality control process we devised seem to work with our technical solution? How are you doing on page count, and so on? Finally, in order to get, you need to have a good process in place for your color team reviews. I've seen so many of these color team reviews where we just open up the line and let anybody talk any which way. You need to have a strategy about how you're going to collect information in an orderly fashion. Perhaps you want to have the outside reviewers who are not on the writing team go first and then dismiss them, and then have the internal reviewers go through section by section or reviewer by reviewer. There needs to be somebody on the call that's recording what's discussed so that there are decisions on every piece of information that's brought into the call and a process for deciding what to do with it. Those are my 5 best practices for proposal writing. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jim. Great points. And what's the most important factor in a company's proposal win percentage?
The most important factor is to be prepared. People put too much emphasis on the process of proposal writing. The process, the win theme on proposal writing is irrelevant. It's the win theme on the whole BD cycle. So you have to be prepared when the RFP drops and have a strategy ahead of time and have your team in place, or else your win percentage goes way down. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention.
Great. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate your time. Next up, we've got Catherine Bennett, who is just wrapping up the awesome conference put on by Lupio over the last 2 days. You guys did a great job. It was a lot of fun. Catherine, I think I saw you in the panel. It's great to have you with us today, and I'm just going to hop over here to your 5 best practices.
Yes, hi, thank you. This has been an extremely valuable practice so far. I'm so glad we've had a chance to talk about launching into our federal fiscal year with all of these amazing tips. And I would love to add to these from the perspective of efficiency and automation within your proposal space. So a lot of times we think about the content, that's extremely important. And of course, we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But I'm a proposal management expert with 12 years of experience in the industry for federal and state and local governments. And I focus heavily on how to be most efficient so that you can spend the time elevating your practice and not dealing with the kind of crummy lower level work, the low value work in our proposal processes. So when I think about proposals for the federal government this year, what I am focusing on heavily is compliance. We think about the 3-legged stool and the ways in which proposals are won. And the foundation, the bottom line for these is that you have to comply with the requirements that are set forth by the government agencies that are promulgating these documents. So making sure that we're complying, getting all the forms, getting all of the requirements and the tables formatted in the appropriate way, or else you're going to just get kicked right out of the process, and we don't want that. Of course, the other 2 legs of the 3-legged stool are compliance, price, and proving that we can answer the customer's needs. So when we think about proposals, number 2 here, we want to think about how we're proving value most effectively. When we talk about proposal win rate, it's not heavily dependent on the price in many contexts. What we're trying to achieve is best value. But what does value even mean? We want to think about that ways in which we deliver what the customer needs, and we describe how we can best deliver what the customer needs so that the price seems justified. Low price bids are not the most commonly winning bids, right? Unless there's a specific government structure that justifies that choice. But how are you communicating your value? And again, that's justifying the price and describing the benefit that you're really going to be bringing to your customers. Third, and perhaps something that we don't talk a lot about in the federal space, but that is something that's top of mind for me, is using tech tools to support your process. And with all due respect to the fact that proposal managers do put a lot of work in, I don't believe that our proposal teams should be working after hours. I think that our proposal managers have just as much of a right to work-life balance as other folks in our organizations. And tech tools are the answer to a lot of those challenges. So when we think about how do we organize our information that we've previously used for other documents, if we use a library like Lupio or some of the other available solutions that are on the market today, we can often improve the efficiency of our processes and actually make sure that the entire team is supported in communicating expectations and making sure that information is really clear. So tech tools not only include proposal automation solutions, but also things like your CRM, or maybe even sales tools that can help track your calls and analyze the way in which you're doing business. So don't be shy. The winningest proposal shops out there are heavily entrenched in tech right now. And if you're not on that boat, it's going to sail off without you. Number 4, let's educate our internal stakeholders about expectations before proposals launch. So what we need to do really here is get our managers on board so that subject matter experts and technical teams already have proposal times built into their work. Proposals cannot be done effectively off the side of a desk, and they need to be considered as primary revenue generating activities. And so again, the best proposal shops are thinking about that before they ever launch into responding to these requests, and they're making sure that their technical teams have the time, have the bandwidth, and have the training to effectively deliver the content that we need. And number 5, now this is one that I'm particularly excited about, is measuring our department and our responses. So Lupio and again, other solutions on the market today offer methods for measuring your department's progress and your effectiveness that help you troubleshoot your sales process. So if you're measuring at different points along the proposal management cycle, you can identify where you're falling down and how you can respond more effectively. So think about availing yourself of FOIA requests, making sure that you're debriefing with your customers effectively so that you can identify the parts of your proposal that really hit the mark and those that may have fallen a little bit short. So we also think about measuring the process of our departments. How are we responding and how are we getting to, to the previous speaker's point, how do we get to that first draft faster and more effectively using the tech tools that we mentioned in number 3. So these are the top 5 best practices that I'm really considering over this fiscal year to advance my own proposal practice and to recommend to others in the space. And I'm ready for questions.
All right, thank you, Catherine. What are the best 1 to 2 metrics that proposal managers can measure for their departments?
Yes, so I am thinking right now of cost per bid. So what I want to do is quantify the amount of time and therefore the dollar value that is going into each proposal. So if you can track for technical folks, just a rough estimate about how much time they're spending, how much money you're spending on materials, and how much time the proposal managers themselves are spending on these documents, you can identify a good cost per bid and determine how effective your proposal management activities are, and therefore identify steps for pursuing more efficiency. Now, the second metric that I think is extremely important that a lot of us don't think about, we often consider win rate, but we don't necessarily think about shortlist rate. So if we are having a particularly high win rate and a high shortlist rate, then we know that our system is going well. But if we have a high shortlist rate and a low win rate, perhaps we're falling down in our interviews. So if we're thinking about cost per bid and shortlist, those are the top 2. Now, Lupio did just release a 22 metric guide that's at lupio.com/RFP-metrics that you can access at no cost and understand a little bit more about how you can measure your own departments for maximum success.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's great to have you with us today, and congratulations on wrapping up the Lupio conference this week.
Thank you.
Great. Next up, we've got Rina Bahita, who has been a speaker for us in the past on proposal writing and other topics. So Rina, it's great to have you with us today. I'm going to move over to your best practices here and give you the floor.
Thank you. And not to put you in an embarrassing situation, my last name is always mispronounced. It's Rina Bhatia. So
Sorry.
thank you. That's okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's great to be back on another one of your webinars. I've been listening. I jumped in a little bit earlier, heard a lot about the capture sales process, and happy to have all these peers on the proposal side as well. And to, I took a little bit of a different turn here on my slides and the talking points. There's a lot of information on how to improve your proposal writing processes. And I liked what Jim said earlier, prepare, spend a lot of time preparing. I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name here, Catherine, what you said earlier, use tech tools, leverage technology to make your proposal process efficient. What I'm going to talk about here, my few pointers are going to raise eyebrows with the proposal managers on the call or the proposal team folks on the call, and it's going to make the C-suite very happy because this is a dichotomy that we have. The proposal team keeps saying, no, we got to write from scratch. You can't just reuse material. We got to tailor it. And the C-suite, who is not necessarily in the process of writing, keeps saying, well, we did this on that proposal. Why can't you just reuse it? Go copy and paste it in here. So what I'm going to give you here, my top 5 best practices. First of all, I want to make it very clear. I do not like proposal libraries. My slides might indicate or say something towards it, but what my pointers are is jumping on what Jim said earlier. Use your time efficiently and prepare. And so these tips are for how you can prepare. Identify your proposal, the processes in a proposal section. And I think it was Alan in the sales cycle who said, if you look at 100 RFIs, 100 RFPs, you start to see a repeatable pattern. What does the government typically always ask for? Your recruiting plan, your quality control plan. How do you train your employees? These are business processes. Identify those early and come up with a proposal narrative on your business process. Your business processes don't necessarily change. They have to be tailored, but they are not going to completely change based on the RFP you're going to respond to. So identify your business processes and come up with a proposal section for those. That becomes your reusable content. And as I said, your corporate processes are not going to change regardless of the nature of the work you do. If you are bidding in your industry, if you're bidding the same type of work, your business processes are going to be consistent. Assign a process owner. I cannot tell you how many times we walk into an organization, we see their proposal libraries that are hodgepodge of sections that were pulled out of different proposals from 1985 to Lord knows when. None of them are relevant, and still their employees are copying and pasting those processes. Every process in your proposal, I'm going to use the word now and hate it, proposal library in your proposal process stack should have a process owner assigned to it, whose responsibility it is to go and look at it at least once a year and update it. Do not have outdated processes in place. And don't start claiming things that you don't do, or hey, this looked great on the internet, reusable content that I just bought off of some website, I'm going to make that my process. If you don't do it, you don't do it. Document what you do and update it once a year. White label your reusable content. Do not submit. We're going to be supporting Army when you're writing a FEMA proposal. Make sure your writers catch that, or at least you point them to the sections that should be customized and tailored. So white label your reusable content. And absolutely, there's no such thing as 100% copy and paste. You have to go back in and read what you have just copied and pasted, your own process, and say, does it relate to what the government is asking for? Does it relate to what the customer needs are? And where do I need to tailor it? That part, you bring in your experts. And again, jumping on Catherine's point, by doing all of this, you are going to reduce your cost of building a proposal in the long run. And so these are my 5 tips to jump on everything else, not in isolation. Ready for questions?
Great, thanks, Rena. And are proposal libraries useful when it comes to writing?
If they're not, and I proposal, I don't like to use the word library at all. The proposal libraries, unless your reusable content stack, we call it reusable content stack. You know, you might say it's the same thing, you're just calling it something different. But the idea that you can have this library of reusable content just sitting around doing nothing, no, it's your, I don't think they're very usable unless you maintain and update them regularly.
Super, thank you so much. Those were great points. Sorry for the mispronunciation. And next we're going to bring up Ann Pine from Annexity. Ann, I think I saw you on the line. And hopefully you're ready to roll here. So I'm going to move over to your best practices and give you the floor. And maybe I've got you on mute. I'm sorry. Let's see. Ann, I think you're self-muted. So if you can take yourself off mute, there we go.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Jennifer, for having me, and it's been a pleasure listening to everyone so far. It's super informative and a great way to kick off the new year. So I've put together some of our best practices and tips specifically for writing. So the first one is that writers should write. So what I mean by that is, while your technical team is a vital component of the proposal effort, that doesn't mean that they have to or should write all of it. Because if the greatest solution isn't well articulated, the proposal probably won't make sense to your evaluators. And the most common issue I hear about proposal writing from different clients is that it's too technical and doesn't read easily. So using good writers that are experienced in the industry, whether they're your internal employees or external consultants, is super important for making sure that your proposal will be easily read. Next up is passive as wimpy. So this is pretty standard stuff, but is your proposal written in active versus passive voice? So for example, which do you feel is a stronger statement? The solution was designed by John Smith's team, which is passive, or John Smith's team designed the solution, which would be active. So generally you'll know if the sentence is active if it answers who did what. In the active example that I mentioned, who is John Smith's team, what is design the solution? Because people or your readers tend to think in terms of who did what, writing the active voice really is one of the most reader-friendly tactics you can employ in your proposal. Next up is capitalization is king. This is pretty self-explanatory, but I feel like we see this a lot too, where random words are capitalized throughout the proposal, and it's actually really hard to read. So listen to your English teachers that taught you to capitalize only the proper nouns, and you'll be doing a great service. So just use the capital letters sparingly and accurately. The fourth is turn down that buzzing. So what I mean by that is the buzzwords. If you think about it, every solution can't be best of breed, state of the art, and world class. So you want to employ meaningful adjectives to describe your solution or service and the benefits that it can yield. Excessive use of buzzwords seems lazy. So put as much effort into describing your solution or service as you did designing it. You can feel free to email me for a list of some of the most overused buzzwords that we see. There's a lot that I'm sure you are all familiar with. And finally, less is more. We're seeing this more and more where proposals are getting shorter, the page limits are less. And as I've kind of done here with my own slide, I think it's much easier for readers to read when there's less content. Extraneous words take up valuable space and add nothing to your content. Readers really do appreciate brevity, especially government evaluators. So you don't want to get trapped into writing 3 sentences when one would suffice. If you haven't made your point in 3 sentences, the 4th probably won't help. So you want to read your proposal, read it again and again, each time looking for ways to make it shorter, more efficient. And don't just be your own editor, bring in other people, whether you're from your company, different folks from different areas, or even outside consultants can help to make sure that it's makes sense. So I think those are all of my tips I have, Jennifer, so I'm ready for the question.
Yeah, and I love short, succinct slides, so thank you so much for making yours that way. With most proposal writing being completed remotely right now, what's your top tip for successful reviews?
Yeah, so it kind of ties into Catherine's points about technology. I think, you know, having a single online source for documents and information is critical right now. You see it with folks emailing back and forth, you really lose version control, and also just a security issue. If it's, you know, confidential information, you really don't want to be emailing it back and forth. So using something like G Suite or Office 365 Box, Dropbox, and they all have free options, which are great for, you know, smaller companies as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Anne. Appreciate your time and love
Thank
your
you.
tips. And that rounds out our proposal writing session. So we're going to do another quick shout out and thanks to all of our sponsors who made today's event possible. Again, we've got C3, BIP Solutions, FBC, BidSpeed, Ocean 5, the Boone Group, Government White Papers, Work Plan, SWIC Tech, First National Bank, and GovFlex. Thanks again, everybody, and thanks to our sponsors.